All right, we're going to start drawing out our Pharaoh trading card. The first thing you're going to want to grab is your watercolor paper that's already cut to the right size. Mine is obviously much bigger, so it will show up better on the video. You'll want an eraser, a pencil, and for the first part of this activity, you'll also want a ruler. We're going to draw our border around the outside. Now for yours, it should be about a ½ inch. If you want to do something a little larger or thinner, that's totally fine. Mine, because my paper is so big, I'm going to make my border 1 inch. Now this is going to be really important that you take your time to measure and that you draw very light. I'm drawing dark so it will show up on the camera, but you're going to want to try to be as perfect as possible. And again, it's going to be important that you take your time. And again, I'm drawing dark so it shows up. You are going to be erasing some of these lines. You'll really want to make sure you're drawing as light as you can. All right, my next step is going to be erasing the lines I don't want, which are the ones inside my border. If I were to leave some of my pencil lines showing, that would mean my craftsmanship grade would go down, because I wouldn't want to display my artwork if it looks messy or like I didn't take my time. All right, there's my border. Now I'm ready to draw my person. So as we know from looking at our resources, and we did some research, if we're trying to incorporate the Egyptian style of drawing, we have some very strict rules we need to follow. The first is that our person should be facing the side. We are drawing a profile of their face. So the first big decision you need to make is what direction is your person going to face? Mine, I think for this one, is going to face the right. So my next choice is how much of the background do I want to show? If I look at my person on this one, I don't have that much of a background up here. I got really close to maxing out my space, and the top of my head was really close to the top of my border. So I might, for this one, make the top of my head a little bit lower, just to give myself a little more space. So I think the top of my head is going to be around here. And what that means is I'm going to draw a circle where the top of my circle hits that line. I don't want to draw a little circle like this, because then my Pharaoh's going to be way up here. And if we're drawing a trading card, it should just be like the waist up. Like if you had your school picture taken, it would be from your shoulders up. That's what we're doing here. So no little tiny heads. We want no micro drawings. I want my Pharaoh's shoulders to be about here, which means my head needs to be pretty big. So I'm going to draw a circle that has very little white space on both sides, just enough for me to put a face. Now, if you're not very good at drawing circles by hand, a trick is you can rotate your paper. Every time you rotate your paper, you'll see some areas that you might need to fix. Okay, I now have my circle. The next step is I'm going to split my circle in half both ways very lightly, because you'll be erasing these. It doesn't have to be perfect. Something like that. Now take a look at the space I have around. It's enough space to put a face and some shoulders, but it's not so much space where I'm going to have a bunch of area to fill in later with background color. You want just a little bit of background around your circle. Okay, so my circle is cut in half both ways. Now on the bottom half of my circle, I'm going to cut it in half again. So this point here and the bottom of my circle, I'm going to try to find somewhere in the middle, and I'm going to draw a little line that separates it. Now I want to take an area about this big and I want to add it to the bottom. So I'd say this space is about this size of my pencil. So what I can do is put the tip of my pencil there and my finger. So now I know that it would be about right here. This is going to be my chin. So I'm going to do something like this. And this would end up being my chin area. Now I know that my eye is going to sit somewhere around here. So just as a placeholder, I'm going to put like an almond on its side shape. Just as a placeholder for now. And then your nose, right as your circle bends in, because you have a bridge of your nose here, right as it bends in and I feel my pencil go inward, I'm going to go in a little and then I'm going to let it go out. So you have a little curve here. So I'm going to follow my circle and then out a little. And then just for the sake of having a placeholder for now, I'm going to let it end somewhere in the middle of this section of my circle. So if I were to split this section in half, that's somewhere where my nose should end. And then my mouth is going to be somewhere in the middle of here. So somewhere like in this area. Now here's a cool trick. This is going to be an exaggeration so you can see it. But a mouth is almost like a little triangle here. And then a little triangle here. And your lips stick out a little. Now clearly that looks silly. We wouldn't make it that dramatic. But we can do something like this. And then make our chin come out like that. And then our jawline would be somewhere like that. And then what you're going to do, now that you have a little bit of a face starting to form, is you're going to start making some changes. So maybe you're thinking, I want my nose to be more like pointed a little up. And I want my lips to be a little more like this. And then I might decide, oh, I think my eye might need to be pushed in a little farther. So maybe I erase my eye. And remember, the eye is facing directly at the viewer. That's the big rule of drawing faces. The profile is the side, but the eye is looking directly at us. And then my ear is going to be somewhere between my eye and my nose, right on this middle line. And again, this isn't perfect. It's just something that will get us closer. Now before I start erasing things, I need to add my neck in here so I don't look like an alien or a floating head. So I'm going to follow and trace the back of my head. And right when I get down towards the bottom, I'm going to let it fall directly down like that. And maybe you don't want your neck that far in. Maybe you want it more like that. It's up to you. And then I also need a neck in the front. But notice how I don't draw a line straight down. I want it curved a little bit. Now the next thing we're going to draw are the shoulders. Now the shoulders should be pretty wide because your shoulders are actually two of your heads next to each other. So my shoulders are going to be probably something like that off of my page a little bit. And remember, Egyptians drew the torso and the eye facing us, the viewer. And so maybe I see part of my arm here. Because remember, they always wanted each body part to have a distinct, they didn't really care about it looking real. They just want you to know this is an arm, this is an arm. And then their heart is facing us. They didn't draw hearts though. Do you remember what they drew? Sometimes it would be a scarab beetle. So if you want to put that there, you could. Now before I start erasing lines up here, I'm going to give my person a headdress to show that they are royalty, and you have a resource for that. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to follow this line that goes straight in the center and behind my pharaoh's ear, and I'm going to let this be the headband of my headdress. But headdresses are thick, they're not really thin, so they're going to stick off of your head a little bit. So I'm going to make it go up a little higher like that. And then it also has kind of a headband part that goes behind it and kind of curves in over here towards the ear. And because it would be easier for me if I don't have to make it just end right here. I could just draw an earring and then have it end at my earring. Then you can't see the line of where my headdress ends. And I'm starting to get a lot of eraser lines that I need to erase. So I'm gonna go in here and I'm just gonna erase the ones that I need to get rid of right now. And again, if you're drawing light, you should be able to erase them all the way. Okay, that's good for right now. And then my headdress goes way off the back. So what I'm going to do is trace this line. I'm just going to trace it a little bit off behind its head. So tracing the same curve just away from its head. And then when I get towards the bottom, so tracing, I'm going to give it that little tail that comes down like this. And then when I look at my resource, I see that this little tail actually ends right behind its ear, like that. And so this would all be its headdress. So what I'm going to do now is erase all of these lines inside my headdress. Make sure you erase them really, really well, so when you watercolor, it doesn't, the graphite, the lead from your pencil doesn't turn your watercolors all gray and mucky. And I'm going to make this go up a little higher. It's really important that once you draw something, you take a minute to look at it and then make a couple changes, because usually the first time you draw something, it's just to get you started. All right, now I need the front part of my headdress, and I'm going to have it have a little headband like this. And remember, it has thickness to it. It's not super paper thin, so it's going to stick off of the head a little. And then I think I'm going to do the one that looks kind of like a turkey, but it has like a snake head. So first I'm going to draw this part, just the part that sits on top of their head. I'm going to erase all of this because we wouldn't be able to see their skull through it. And the next thing I'm going to do is add the super cool part, which is that like snake turkey neck thing where it kind of goes like this, and then it has a tongue that sticks out. And then I'm going to erase this line too. So see how much erasing we're doing? That's why it's really important to have an eraser and draw light. We're kind of creating a coloring book page for yourself, remember, so you want to make sure you have areas you can color in really easily. So I have a little bit of a snake head. I might add some texture so it looks like scales, but I think I might wait and do that when I'm done watercoloring, and then I'll do that with like a marker just so it shows up better. But I do want my person, my pharaoh, to have an eye of Horus because I think those are really cool, and remember they have some symbolic meaning to it. So I'm going to make the ends of the eye kind of go pointed, like they have eyeliner on. I'm going to draw the center of the eye. I'm not going to color it in because I'm doing all of my coloring in with watercolor. And then it has a swirl, but the swirl is on the part closer to the ear. So what I do is I first draw the swirl, and then over here by the nose, it has this kind of like smiley face on its side, a little curved line. And then you're going to connect those like that. And you might, again, you might need to make some changes. Like I might want this a little swoop here, like this, now that I see how it looks. And I might want some separation so they don't, the curve doesn't touch the eye all the way. And then you might want to decide, is your person smiling? Did pharaohs usually look like they're smiling, or do they usually have a pretty serious look on their face? Do you want to close the shapes of your lips so you can color it in a little better, or do you want to leave it open? Those are all choices you as the artist need to make. And then you need to start giving your person clothes what kind of outfit is it going to have. Egyptians put a lot of jewelry on their pharaohs, so that means you might have a lot of patterns that show up in your clothing that you choose. Like I might actually do stripes on the headdress too. And if you really wanted to, for a better craftsmanship grade, you could use a ruler and make sure these are evenly spaced apart. I might add some little jewel shapes here. Make sure when you're drawing your shapes, you're going slow enough to make sure they're closed. See how that one isn't closed, but this one is? I would get a lower craftsmanship grade for not closing my shapes. You got to take your time. So I would erase that one and go really slow and fix it. And then I'm going to go ahead and erase all of these extra little spots too. And then once you have it exactly the way you want it, you're going to be ready to watercolor. We can start getting something like this down.